So let's spend a few minutes talking about this, the implication of this marginal rate of substitution condition. So the marginal rate of substitution is equal to this price ratio. That's the condition that we solve for, right? So in well-organized markets, or in organized markets, people are facing the same prices, or typically they are. If everyone is optimizing, so if everyone's behaving where they're trying to maximize their utility or they're picking the best bundle they can afford, maybe that's a better way to put it. If everyone's picking the best bundle they can afford, if everyone is optimizing, and if everyone is at an interior solution, so not one of these corner solutions that we've kind of mentioned a few times, so they're consuming both goods is basically what it is, interior solution, then everyone will have the same marginal rate of substitution at their optimal bundle. And this marginal rate of substitution, it will be, P1, this price ratio, will be independent of their tastes as well as their income. Will be independent of their tastes and their income. So it's not that everyone's consuming the same amount of these goods. We have wealthier people maybe buying more and less wealthy people buying less, but this condition will hold for everybody. Everyone's going to be at the point where they're just willing to stay where they are given the prices they face. And this kind of gives us, I guess I should put a negative sign up here, this kind of gives us a way to value changes in consumption. And maybe, I don't think I have enough room to kind of go to the next part here, so let's erase this and kind of talk about what I mean by that. Through conditions, we'll be able to say that the marginal rate of substitution equals this price ratio. And what this allows us to do is kind of evaluate different policies that might change consumption. So given this, we have a way to value changes to the consumption bundle. So to understand if they're going to make the consumer better off or worse off. And so, for example, and I'll just use the example from kind of the book where, let's say good one is butter, and the price of butter is $2, and good two is milk, where the price of milk is $1. Well, that means the marginal rate of substitution equals $2. So what does this mean? Well, need two, if the units of milk are quarts, or liters, if you want to be Canadian, we could say 2 liters of milk to compensate the consumer for one butter. If they lose one butter, they need 2 milks to be kind of, that's the marginal rate of substitution at their optimal point, right? So that's like that exchange rate where they're just willing to stay put. So if we wanted to evaluate like different inventions or possible, let's say inventions, like that's what the book kind of does. You have like 2 inventions. And let's say invention 1 changes 3 milk into 1 butter. Well, inventing this has no value. Consumers need 2 quarts of milk to get one amount of butter. So putting 3 milks to get one stick of butter or whatever, or pound of butter, whatever we're thinking about in terms of units of butter, is not going to make the consumer better off. So there's no value in this. But if we came up with an invention 2, which does the opposite, or changes 1 butter into 3 milk, this has lots of value. So we want to have an invention that does this. It would make, it would significantly change people's consumption, and it would be worth something, because all of a sudden, if people were willing to take 2 milks for each butter, well, now if they take 1 butter, they can get 3 milks. Well, this is going to make them better off. This is like a good invention, right? The rate at which the consumer, in particular the price ratio, like we were just talking about, the rate at which consumers are willing to sell consumers are willing to sub 1 good for the other. We can use them to value policies that change the consumption of goods, that change like the consumption, that change consumption. And so prices, they're not these arbitrary numbers, right? So prices aren't arbitrary. They reflect how people value these goods. And this is like a really important point that these prices reflect, if they're represented by the marginal, if they represent the marginal rate of substitution, and that says something about people's preferences. And if we start to change, we look at how prices change over time and how it changes people's consumption of goods and the pattern in which they consume goods, we can start to understand their preferences. And these prices can understand how we can place value on policies that change how much people consume of different goods. And so it's really important to note that they are just arbitrary numbers. They reflect how people value these goods. It's on the margin, to be clear. Because it's the marginal rate of substitution. So as I was kind of just saying, we can observe choices at one set of prices. And if prices change, observe them at the new prices. The new choices at the new prices, observe them at the new prices. And here we can learn about the underlying preferences that people have. And we can start to get an idea of what a utility function for different groups might look like, or different people might look like. Okay, so now what we can do is kind of go on to an example with what we've learned to look at taxes, and whether a tax on income or a quantity tax on a particular product, if one of those taxes is preferred more than another.